This new Warlock Solar build lets you dominate endgame PvE with infinite healing, increased DPS, and a lot more. In fact, you don't even need to use specific weapons to take down overload champions, so you can run around using the ideal weapons that suit your playstyle. Now there will be a few things that you will need to be strict about running, but we'll get to that in just a moment, and throughout the video I will point out the alternative exotics that you can use if you don't like the current setup. Now this video is sponsored by USMMO, so if you're after some of that cheap silver, then be sure to check them out down below, and if you like this one, then why not show your support by leaving a cheeky rating and comment. And now guys, let's get straight into it. So firstly, as always, if you like these videos and you want to see more, then feel free to view the full collection in the playlist down below, as I do cover builds weekly here on the channel. But with this build, you will be able to run around in legend and master activities just killing everything constantly, while always having that health regen. And with one of the fragments we're running, it's almost like Devour, because we will constantly be refreshing that timer, and as long as you're not getting completely destroyed by 100 adds all at once, then you really just cannot die. Now we are going to be using the Secant Filaments with this build, which states that we get Devour, but we won't. But we will be using these so that we get more flexibility with our weapons, but still be able to stun overloads. And as we get into this setup, I will point out the alternatives to use, which is really good as well. But basically, a quick overview of how this build is used is you'll first use your Empowering Rift. This will give you Restoration ×2, Empowering Weapon DPS, and Overload rounds to your weapons while activating Reaping Wellmaker, which will spawn a Void Well upon killing an enemy. You'll then use your Healing Grenade if you need to, when you need to, as well as your melee to trigger the Radiant buff for even more DPS. And then when you finally decide to pick up that well, you'll get damage reduction as well as ability energy. With this build in place, you will be able to consistently use your Healing Grenade and Rift to have that restoration active for almost 100% uptime, because both abilities will be recharging quickly, and you'll be increasing the effect's duration by just killing enemies as well. So getting into the setup, the first thing you'll want is any solar weapon. Ideally a pulse rifle to stop barriers, or a scout rifle to stop unstoppables, but you can use an arbalist if you prefer, which is always a good option. But I'd prefer to use Galley as my DPS weapon when playing endgame solo. Two good legendary heavy weapons to use though are the Raid Linear and the Dungeon Linear fusion rifles. But your energy weapon will want to be solar to match your subclass. But as for the subclass, we are going to be running Well of Radiance with the Empowering Rift. Just make sure you have this on because this is required for the build. The melee we have is the Incinerator Snap, which will scorch targets, and then the grenade that we're using is the healing one so that we can get restoration when consuming it. Aspects are Touch of Flame. This will improve our healing effects, and then Heat Rises, which will also help with improving our healing effects. For the fragments, we have Ember of Singeing for class ability energy when we scorch targets, and that will happen from our melee. Ember of Torches, where our melee will also let us become radiant. Ember of Imperium, so our solar weapons or ability final blows will extend the duration of restoration and radiant. One of the best fragments to use, so make sure you have this on. But the last one is Ember of Solace, where radiant and restoration effects applied to us will have increased duration. You want this on so that we can have enough time between kills in the harder content, as it will take longer to get kills in endgame PvE. So back to the exotic, we are using Secant Filaments specifically so that we can stun overloads with any weapon, and you might think it's a waste of an exotic slot, which is fair, as you can't use Devour on the solar subclass. So your alternative is either Eye of Another World or Starfire Protocol. Now Starfire Protocol will give you a free rift when you get kills with a fusion grenade, and kills while in the rift will give you grenade energy, but the two issues I have with this one is firstly, it'll be a little struggle keeping this effective in things like a GM, and secondly, you can't use a healing grenade. So if you're going into a GM, I'd either use Eye of Another World or Secant Filaments, and make sure you have 100 recovery and resilience if possible. So for the mods, starting with the helmet, we have Enduring Wells so that our elemental wells created last longer, Harmonic Siphon so that we can generate orbs on solar weapon multi-kills, and then our Ammo Finder for a heavy weapon. In the gauntlets we have Elemental Armaments, which you can swap out if you want to. This one isn't really giving us much use unless you're running a Font of Might, but with that we have Grenade Kickstart to get some grenade energy back when using it, and then our champion mod if you need it. Chest armor, we have Well of Tenacity for that damage resist when picking up those Void Wells, along with our damage resist mods from the artifact. Leg armor, we're using Reaping Wellmaker, so we can actually spawn those wells in when using our rift and getting a kill, which we'll do more often than you think. And also with the orbs generated, we will get more ability energy when picking them up, But the last thing we're using is our scavenger mod. Finally, for the bond, we have Well of Utility for extra class energy when picking up those wells, and if you want you can swap out your elemental ornaments and enduring wells to another Well of Utility if you're struggling with keeping a consistent rift up. Otherwise, I've got an ability cooldown as well as classy restoration, which will activate restoration when we use our class, which is why you want that rift as quick as possible. As for the stats, I'd max out recovery if using the exotic legs, or resilience if using Starfire. But overall you want 100 recovery, resilience, and if you can, discipline as well. Now overall I do like this build a lot, and it's helped me so much with those overload problems, because you literally can use any weapon you want, and it's perfect when you're up against barriers and overloads, or overloads and unstoppables. But if you aren't facing any overloads, then I'd consider sticking with the Starfire protocol or the Eye of Another World. But guys, that about concludes this new Warlock Solar build for the new Solar 3.0 subclass update in Destiny 2 Witch Queen Season of the Haunted. As always, if you want to see more like this, then be sure to check out the playlist down below, and I'll see you guys over there next. Peace out.